What is up? My name is Matthew Makak, and this is Room 51, where we talk all things board gaming. And today we are doing some pre-origin stuff, continuing on with our Allyship 101. I have some awesome guests here. So over to my left, hopefully you can see, is the amazing, awesome Fetch fan of Meeple.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be me.
Oh, wow. I feel so honored that I got introduced over Jess. Like, awesome. I love it. But hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
Yes. No, just you're coming up later, okay? Like, chill. And then the fantastic, the amazing, the perf, Baker Meeple, Abby over there.
Hi. I'm just happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. And then some other person here, Jess CCG.
Hi. I'm fantastic. Matthew doesn't even need to say it. I'm just already fantastic.
Yeah, Jess, you stand up for yourself. I love that. I believe in you. And I love that you believe in yourself.
Yes.
Here we go. So our last video was all about like Allyship 101, just talking about like different terms and things like that within the LGBTQ plus community. But today I have these friends on so that we could talk about how can we actually express allyship in board gaming, so the board gaming community as a whole. And I've got some questions from my friends over here. And y'all could chime in whenever you want. It's going to be a pretty fluid, conversation, just like our last video. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. We're going to be thinking about some things that hopefully y'all could also maybe think about and see what you think too. But yeah, I guess my first question is, how does allyship present itself in board gaming, if it does at all? Like, have you folks felt like you've noticed that, seen that in the board gaming community? And if you have, like, what has it looked like for you?
I guess I could start.
There we go. I'm like, who's going to answer first?
Yeah. So I've been doing board gaming just for, I don't know, 5 to 6 years now. And I've seen like a progression of more things coming up in terms of allyship. One thing in particular that I will mention is the use of pronoun tags on badges.
Yes.
Excuse me. And having those readily available, so when people go to a convention or something and they can pick up their name badge, they can also attach their pronouns, which I think is a huge thing, especially for folks that want to be identified in a way that might not match their physical appearance. And so seeing that being more prevalent in that community space, I think is been huge so far. For gaming spaces too, I think in terms of like inviting people to tables, also making it clear, having like a code of conduct, like if you go to a game store or you go to a meetup or something like that, having a code of conduct that addresses those things as well. Like we're open to players of all kinds, and we do not tolerate discrimination, racism, homophobic behavior, all of that kind of stuff. If that's been clear like right from the get-go, I think having that information can actually be more inviting for folks. So those are two immediate things that just like pop into my head right now.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So you sort of like focus on like the convention side of things, I'm thinking. And those ribbons, a lot of times you'll find them from tabletop gamers with a Y, which is really cool. So shout out to them who show up at conventions giving out these ribbons and everything. But yeah, so I agree. I think that I've seen a bit of that in conventions. But I guess I'll get back to that. I'm curious what Phantom Meeple and Baker Meeple feel.
Well, excuse me. Wow, it's contagious.
Unbelievable.
Wow, thanks, Jess. But no, from like an online platform perspective, I mean, I've I've been in the board gaming space as far as that for just a little over 2 years. And I've noticed, at least on Twitch, where I primarily do my board gaming content, that a lot of those board game streamers are kind of tailoring their spaces to be more inclusive. Like they themselves use pronouns. They make their spaces, welcoming and warm, and they have their own, rule set to, not use like ableist or anti-LGBTQ language and that sort of thing. So it's again same thing in the convention space is becoming more prevalent and normalized online, and I think it's great to see.
I agree. And then I've also noticed a shift, and maybe it's just where we live and who I spend my time with, but communities that are gaming, they are trying to they put the disclaimers like Jess said, like this is not accepted here. They have the safe space sticker on the doors, and as a queer person, I love seeing that when I walk in, because it's like, okay, I probably won't immediately be smacked in the face with something, because obviously this place cares enough about me that they put it out there right on the front door going, hey, we're okay with this, we're not okay if you don't feel okay. And knowing that there are people that you can talk to, be like, hey, this person said something really rude and it made me really uncomfortable. I think that's really important, and I've seen more and more of that, which I really
Okay. So you're saying that you feel comfortable like going to somebody to let them know like this dude or whatever
Mhm.
has said crap or done crap.
Yeah, it's usually employees, or I just look at like someone and I'm like, did I take that the wrong way? I probably I could have taken it the wrong way. Sometimes it's not, which it's always good to get a clarification, be like, I didn't hear that wrong, right? And then just sometimes it does. I'm like the worst person to stick up for myself, but like you have to, especially in the LGBTQ community, because there was a long time where a lot of us weren't welcome at a lot of tables. And so making sure that like I don't stand for it and make myself pretty known that I don't tolerate it. And then I will be like the naggy wheel and go and make noise and be obnoxious about it.
Yay, good. um, I'm glad to hear that, especially with you saying like you're not typically the one to stand up for yourself. Maybe not comfortable, but that you've been doing more of that. So I've been thinking about, especially in terms of conventions. Honestly, I don't know because we're in year 2023, and that is when this is being recorded. By the way, I don't know when you're watching this, but um, and I don't know if there's actually been enough done for the LGBTQ plus community. Um, in terms of having specific spaces for folks, because I know that some conventions that I go to, there's like the diversity lounge, and it's usually like off to the side somewhere. It's not quite part of the convention, and so you have to actually like kind of leave the convention space where the gaming's all at to like see people, and then a lot of times it's like kind of empty and it feels awkward. And so I think that it would be amazing to like actually have those spaces within the convention hall itself. I think that would be really cool. Um, I think that there has been progress made with where there are ribbons, you can represent yourself, and that there are things in place like code of conduct, like Jess, you were talking about. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. I expect more at this point. It's like, how is this uh like the progress that's been made so far when it's like how specifically because a lot of queer people are board gamers, or at the very least RPG players. And so um how is it that like you don't have these things put into place to like why um aren't there places and games and designers that are like being brought up in these spaces that are LGBTQ plus. So I think that the bare minimum, honestly, has kind of been done. Um, and I think we could go further with that. Um, and I guess that kind of leads into what do we hope to change for the LGBTQ plus community in gaming?
Well, just to your point, Matthew, I think it's going to be a matter of time, and here's why I think that. I'm going to use Gen Con as an example. Last year, they debuted the BIPOC Lounge, which is a space for that community, that space, and I think it's fantastic. And the reason for that being is I think it's just a progression of the time that if you take a look at like a census, you can see that more than half of the country is in what is called the minority, for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
And I think as more and more people, I say, go out in the open and identify themselves as that I think organizations are going to be more inclined to have those spaces rather than now where it's like, yeah, we're speaking up, but is it enough? And I think they're just not there yet. So I think as time goes on and more voices speak up and the more representation there is pushing for all of this, I think those spaces will appear.
Awesome. Just for viewers' sake, in case people do not know what BIPOC stands for, could you just let folks know what that stands for?
Oh yeah, so that it's the you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Black Indigenous People of Color.
Awesome. Thank you. What are other people's thoughts on what the enemy people said, or what I've said, or the question itself?
I mean, I agree, but also it's really disheartening to see all these areas. So using the BIPOC lounge as an example, I, as a white person, that's not my space. But as a queer non-binary individual, I would love to have a space where I know that I can go and I can find people who are like me. That's the point of the BIPOC lounge, is it is a safe place for those people who identify as that. And so I expressed my frustration to Joe about this for Gen Con. I was like, it sucks that there's not an area. Like, I have to go to an event, and that's my only real chance to go try to meet with these. And con planning events are terrible. So it's like there's 17 things going on, and it's like, okay, but if that's the only opportunity that I get to, meet these people that I don't have any friendships with online yet, because I just haven't found them, it's kind of frustrating, because it's like, in this, it's 2023. There is a huge number of LGBTQ plus individuals, but yet we're still sitting back here and we're like, hey, we could have a room, we could have something other than a 1 hour event every night type thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, to your point, it's like, but how much longer do we need to wait? Because we've been waiting for a long time. And in fact, we haven't just been waiting, because waiting is a passive thing, right? There's been active, uh, what is the word? Like protests. I don't know if anybody's like protesting in the board gaming community, but there, there's been active advocates. That was the word I was looking for. Advocates. In the sphere on all ends, or I won't say all, many. And it's like, why? I mean, gaming has become like a pretty big thing essentially since like the 70s, I would imagine. I mean, gaming itself has been around, like for centuries or whatever. Uh, so have LGBTQ plus people, BIPOC people, all these things. But that's beside the point. Actually, no, it's not. That is the point. It's like it's not like we're this new phenomenon. um, so yeah, I think that and beyond conventions even, because some people can't go to conventions, right? Either they can't afford it, they don't have time, the energy, whatever it might be, maybe social anxiety, whatever it is. How do you make then board gaming, the hobby itself, welcoming to these people? How can uh folks who are outside of the community be an ally, and say that, yeah, you are welcome. here, you are welcome to play this game. We want you to play this game. We are selling this to you. You know, I mean, how do you not want to get more money? I don't understand.
Mhm.
Or even board game cafes and things like that, board game stores. So I think it extends even beyond that. Um, but
I
yeah.
will add to that, Matthew, in terms of like on like the local level, because we're talking about the conventions and that. Yes, it is true. A lot of conventions are far more expensive than several folks can be able to attend. I mean, myself as an example, actually had to be given a scholarship in order to attend Gen Con. Um, and as a woman of color, it was a bit like of a relief because Gen Con is uber expensive, from the hotel to flights to just to be there and to not do my normal day-to-day occupation, and to go to this convention. It was a lot of money. um and to be in a space where having to rely on that, I could only imagine for a lot of folks that they're just like, I just can't go to a convention because of that. So scaling down, let's talk about what we can do as far as like local game stores are concerned, right? Like the board game shops, the cafes, the board gaming bars, or whatever. Um, what can folks do on that like smaller scale? And I think it's all a matter of representation inside and out of that space. And what I mean by that is, for example, this is such a cliche example, but when you walk into a board game shop, 85%, if not 90% of the staff are white and are male. And there has been some change in the recent years because, there are so many wonderful people that can sell you a board game and don't have to look like a white dude. And so um it's just a matter of like staffing. If someone looked like me at a board gaming shop, I most likely would spend probably enough money and time there because I can relate to that person. um just because I would feel comfortable with them being in that space with them. Also, inviting other groups that you don't identify with to come into that space. So creating like a BIPOC night, creating an LGBTQ night, creating like those spaces where people can come and play their games, highlighting the designers and the artwork. I know a game shop here in my city, for Pride, they actually have this huge display of games and art and like collectible cards and RPG books that have been designed by people in the LGBT community. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's like right when you walk in the door, it's like, we're celebrating this. Here's where you can find stuff. So I think it has to be not only the people that are working there, but the people that are doing things on the outside that can bring in those spaces, to bring in the diversity in. But it has to be twofold, I think. I don't, it can't be just a matter of, well, we hired this queer person, so now we should get more people coming in to our shop, right? It's like, well, that's only part of it, right? If you're still promoting, a certain type of content in your board gaming cafe, then you're not going to get the customers that you're hoping for. Like it has to be kind of like a twofold thing. So yeah, so I think in that local scale, that local sphere, um, there has to be that action taken into place, because we can talk all day, right? We can say whatever we want on the internet, because a lot of times we're completely different people on the internet, for lack of better words. But if we allow our words and what we say we want to do actually be in our actions and what we do every day, then I think that's going to be making the difference. So I think if more game shops and more game cafes actually did that, I think it would be a like huge, totally huge. Even if it's a matter of putting up a pride flag in your store window or something. It could be
It is
something
Pride
that,
Month right now.
Yeah, it could be something that small, right? But still means so much, but it has to take that first step, I think.
I agree with you, Jess. I think, yeah, that would be super cool if it's like just like dedicated areas of like just having it on display. Like these are really cool people. These are really cool games that incorporate LGBTQ plus like characters or whatever it might be, slash made by designers within the community. That would be so cool. One game that comes to mind, because I'm thinking about allyship, that because I've been the downer, I feel in this, but like everything
One of
sucks.
one of the queer people on this panel is like, we're talking about change.
Step it up. Okay. No, but one of the ways that allyship has shown itself, I think, in uh the board gaming sphere is one game that comes to mind is Arch Travels. Arc Travels? Arch Travels.
Or travels, yeah.
Yes. And I don't know if the designers were LGBTQ plus, to be honest, but LGBTQ plus is written all over in that game. And it's just about you like knitting like mittens and stuff, teddy bears, whatever. But just the characters in there, like it had a breadth of diversity in it, which was so dope. It was so cool. And it was done purposefully, right? It was with intention, which I think is super important when it comes to allyship. Like intention, right? Being aware, and consistently just trying to do better, right? I know I try to do better because I don't know everything. And that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not know everything. Um, I guess what I hope to see uh, change is I think it's on a couple of levels. I think it's one, folks just like letting people make mistakes and then also allowing them to have that redemption arc. Like we see in, TV shows, who doesn't love Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender? Um, but I think sometimes we go a little bit like, oh, this person said this about like 10 years ago or whatever. And so we don't give them the chance to even redeem themselves. We become aggressive, and it's like, but that's part of how it works, right? Like we screwed up and now we got to get better. I think Jamie Stegmaier does this all the time. Just knows I have like a humongous admiration for Jamie Stegmaier. Um, and he has made mistakes in the past with his board games, and he has fixed those mistakes with intention, uh, going for all sorts of identities, by the way. So I don't. I want to see more of that. I want to see the board gaming hobby just like steering more towards that. I think that would be awesome.
I agree. I think I try not to go like gung ho when people mess up because I'm like, everybody gets like a few chances. It's the repeated bad things that I'm like, come on, this is like the 17th time. I know you know better.
Right.
But for like Jamie's a perfect example because like I'm just like, oh no, and then I'm like, oh wait, oh, like, oh my gosh, he did it. And Joe's always like, yeah, just like the last time this happened. I'm like, I know, but it's still so exciting to see. I do love when people are just like, yeah, I messed up. My bad. This is what I'm doing to fix it. Because it's like, I feel heard. Like, it's like, oh my God, somebody listened to what I'm trying to say and wasn't like, no, you heard me wrong. You're a bad person for making me feel like this. How dare you exist and try to tell me these things? You know what? Everybody makes mistakes. I'm not anywhere near perfect. And I would like to be extended grace. But if I keep mistaking things, the same dang things that you've told me 32 times, I kind of deserve to be lectured hardcore then.
That makes sense.
Agreed. I agree with that. I like that. But I do think that we have gone away from like giving some grace to people. Where it's like, okay, we can take this as a moment. I'm actually kind of curious. This is not on the ballot. But what do folks think of that thought of like it's not our job to educate people? What do you think about that?
I have very mixed feelings about that. I agree with it to an extent. Like if you care about a community or a group of people in any way, shape, or form, you should be expected to at least do a little bit of your own research. Like if like for example, let's get down to like basics. You want to get into the board gaming hobby. What are you going to do? You're going to go on Google. You're going to look up board games. You're going to find the designers. You're going to find, all the awards. You're going to find basic information. And I think that step needs to be taken with anything. Like, do your basic research. And then at that point, if you're still not sure and you've done your due diligence, ask somebody. And then at that point, like, okay, you're obviously genuine. You've done your research. You've found all of this information. Sure, let's educate you a little more. The problem I have with it's not our job to educate is you have these people who just come straight at you and be like, I don't get this. This is BS. Like, tell me what's wrong. It's like, no, not my job to educate you. But if you come at me with an understanding that you've done the work, you've done the legwork, okay, sure. I'm more inclined to be willing to help somebody further their knowledge into a topic.
I will add to that too, Joe, and say when doing your research, make sure it's also a credible source.
Yes.
Check your facts on both sides of the topic too, because there are very, very like certain groups of individuals that are leaning politically, emotionally, mentally in those areas that you could just get all your facts on one side and then you approach it to somebody and they could be on the completely opposite side and that could seem as an aggressive behavior as well too. I will also say sometimes it's better just to listen and hear people out before you open your big mouth. Because most of the time what they actually tell you is going to either A, give credence to what you've researched, or B, leave you like completely in the dark because of whatever you researched was incorrect, or C, you're in this position where you actually have probably offended that person, and it could affect your relationship with them, however it is. So I will say, yes, I totally agree with what Joe is saying. Please do your research, especially in the topics of LGBT and the community and those individuals within. I have learned personally myself so much by having relationships with people in those communities that having conversations with them directly, I have learned far more than I would have on any website. So actually also being in that space with them, hearing them out, listening to them, having the ability to be on that level and like comfortability to like ask them those questions. Like I feel like here in this panel that we're talking about, I feel like for me, if I had questions, I feel comfortable talking to any three of you, like any one of you in this group. And I would hope in turn that you would be able to come to me and ask me questions about things that you are not sure about in that way. But I think it has to start with making sure your research is credible, and also be willing to not just come it from one side, but also be willing to just step back and sit in it as well.
I agree. It's if you are asking someone to do all the emotional legwork, it's really difficult because if you can't go in with a completely open mind, you're already going in with a bias, which puts that conversation at a disadvantage. Like, why are we even discussing this when I already know how you feel. Like, why am I going to spend the energy to educate you if I know that you're just going to look at me and be like, well, that's stupid, I don't agree. And then I just spent all that emotional labor to do that. So if you've done your research, you've put in the effort, and I can tell that you're coming at me with a super open mind, because you can tell when people are asking questions, if it's kind of a judgy question, or if they're like, hey, I'm genuinely curious about this. And like, just knowing full well that if you go in with judgment, and you're going to probably ruin some things, you're going to ruin the relationships, everything, because it's a lot of emotional labor to put on someone else to do your work. But if there's stuff that you genuinely don't understand, but you put in a lot of work, and you come at me and you're like, I have this question, I looked at this and this and this, and I'm still confused about this, I will absolutely chitty chat. We'll grab like a drink, we'll grab some coffee, we'll grab a snack, something, we'll chitty chat. But if you come at me, you're like, I don't understand it, that sounds stupid, I'm gonna be like, okay, cool story, bro. I gotta go by. And I'm just gonna end it there.
Oh man, I'm gonna chitty chat with Abby. Gonna grab a coffee, drinks.
There'll be snacks.
And definitely a snack.
Definitely a
Definitely a
snack.
snack.
I think that I essentially agree with everything folks are saying. One thing that comes to mind is something that Jess was saying in terms of like you know, when you're doing your research and you're looking up things online, um you never know what you're gonna get. Like you could be skewed in so many different ways. The internet is an interesting place, as I think we all know. Um, so my issue with the phrase of like it is not my job to educate you. Um, I think it is our job. I think it is our job to educate people, but it's not our job to defend our identities. Uh, with you're asking to be educated, right? Like because you're not, that's not what you're asking for. So I think yeah, it's our job to especially if we want change, right? If we want change, if we want to have our voices heard and everything, unfortunately, yeah, it might not be fair, but I think it is our job to educate people. And then but like I said, it's not our job to defend our identity, because that's a whole other bucket. That that you don't need to do that. That it's emotionally very difficult. I'm not saying that you shouldn't defend yourself or that like don't ever defend yourself. I mean, you do you. You be your wonderful self. If you feel like, hell no, I'm gonna whatever. You that's fine, as long as it's not violent. I think, um, uh, but yeah, at the same time, it's like sometimes people need to just listen. And the reason I say this also is because we can't possibly research everything, right? So LGBTQ plus community, that is just one facet of so many oppressed identities, and so many things that are just going on a global scale that I can't possibly research all of these things.
Mhm.
Which is why I think, like with Abby and pretty much what all of you were saying, like diversifying like your network, right? Like your social network of people, your friends. That way, like you get a better understanding just by being around other people who are not like yourself. I think that is part of being an ally, just like being friends with people who don't necessarily look like you or are like you. And that could be really difficult, right? Especially
Mhm.
depending on where you live, where it might be that you're just surrounded by a bunch of people that look and talk like you. Um, but the board gaming sphere should not be that way. Um, where because so many different people love this hobby, and I think this is where it comes into like we need to diversify our table of board gamers. We need to be welcoming, because if we do that, then more people would learn some things and become a little more educated on some of the I'm not gonna say educated because sometimes that could be taken as like, what are you saying? I'm dumb, and it's like no, but it opens itself and it lends itself to learning and being curious in a positive way. I think. Um, and anybody can absolutely disagree with me in this panel right now. We could fight, throw hands.
Can't say that I disagree with you at all.
No, I think it is, because it is our job on some level to educate, because at some point almost everybody was clueless about everything, and I would be lying if I didn't look at our 12-year-old who is way more in tune with LGBTQ stuff, and I look at them and go, what does this even mean? And they're like, oh my God, did you know this? And I'm like, yeah, probably, but I don't. So, and I Googled it and like 17 things came up. I don't know what it is. Like, you children with your words these days. What is it supposed to mean?
Yeah, these these youngins and their confangled terms.
Dang, they're too cool for us.
They are.
They really are. They really are.
Back in my day, it was just this.
I know.
Yeah, we know.
I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of information kids have nowadays is just astounding. I mean, our kids teaching us stuff all the time.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
It gives me hope for like the younger, the next generation of gamers coming in, because we are seeing them not being nearly as terrified to speak up
Mhm.
about any of their issues that they're facing. I mean, my favorite thing is watching like 17-year-olds who are just out there causing, pure havoc with everything that they can, because they're like, I know what I'm like, what I feel, and I'm gonna let you know it. And I'm like, get it? I can't do that because I'm terrified and I have anxiety, but I love that for you. Go get it. And so it gives me hope to see that, because it's like, I grew up in the itty bitty town of Michigan, and it was all white people. Like, that was it. I didn't know a gay person until I was 16. I mean, I didn't know I was not straight until I was like 25. So it's like seeing these people coming up in age, like being entirely confident in them because they do have access to education, makes me want to be like, yeah, I'm gonna educate people too. So then maybe I'm not the only 20+ year old who all of a sudden was like, oh my, straight. Oh boy. And so, and I think I like doing that, because I'm just like, yeah, I was 20 something, and all of a sudden I was like, ooh, I'm not straight. And Joe's like, yeah, I knew. And I was like, well, I'm glad one of us did.
I mean that's a story for another time, but yeah,
Don't tell it now. Let's go.
I mean, if you want me to, I'll tell it to you because it's a great story.
It's all good. I mean, yeah, we're gonna chitty chat. So
Yeah. Yeah. But he was like, yeah, I knew. And I was like, well, that makes one of us. I did not know that. And so, when my kid was like, hey, initially it was, I'm non-binary and pan. And I was like, cool. I love that you're 9 and figured this out. And I was 20 something.
Yeah.
I'm like, get it. I am so stoked for you, because now you get to, live a more authentic life without being like, I feel something's weird. Something's not
And
right.
and they don't have to hide it either, like a lot of us did growing up.
oh,
Yeah.
gosh, yes, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but
I love it.
that's ADHD for you.
I will also say too that I learned about the LGBTQ community at a very young age as well. I had a family member who actually came out as gay when I was, I was like 8 or 9, and I had no idea what that meant. And so having it explained to me at that very young age was very eye-opening. I mean, I went through a lot of childhood trauma to begin with, and so to just add that on was just another whole layer. I basically grew up way faster than any kid should have. So I learned how to be an ally like from a very young age, because it was directly in my family, and I saw the division in some family members, and some totally embracing them and others just totally shunning them out. And it was just like I had to make that choice as well. And so I have come to experience how I can love people that are different than me in a much more freeing way because of the relationships that I've had with people in this community. It's been an emotional journey for sure. But I have seen a lot of folks come out. I have I've seen a lot of folks, like similar to Abby's story, like not realize it until they're gonna be walking down the aisle and they're like, wait, I'm not with the right person. Um, I've actually had people in my life that have transitioned in front of me and been with them through that entire journey. And so it's it means a lot to know from those experiences how vital it is to have someone else understand your authentic self. Um, and so the ability to have that be a welcoming presence in something so I want to say non-controversial as board gaming, but board gaming has become controversial. Um, and it shouldn't be, you know, but like to have something like that, um, not be a welcoming space for anyone it's just heartbreaking for me. And so I feel like being an ally means that we also have to fight and support and use our platform and our voices to make those spaces more normalized. I like what Abby was saying earlier when she was mentioning how I wish there for a lack of better terms, like a space for the gays to go and hang out. Like here's the queer space, you know?
Yeah.
But just to make it be comfortable and make it feel like safe and not have it be resorted to just a simple panel on one of the days at the convention. Um, but it's a struggle, and I think a lot of people's personal experiences definitely develop their thinking around this topic. Um, but I think more and more people are realizing that the thoughts and the words that they wanted to say are actually in other people's minds and hearts as well. And so it just takes those few people to just start talking and start advocating and start making those things happen, that more and more folks within the community are going to be like, yeah, like, because there's power in numbers, right? Um,
Yes.
and so having that be a space where you feel like, yeah, like if they can do it, I can do it too, you know? And so I wish that would be a more of a normalized space. And in terms of board gaming and things too, it's hard because it seems like there's just a huge wall. It's just a huge wall. And here we are with our tiny pickaxes, just like tapping at the surface, right? And the
Mm.
huge wall is, you know, the cis heteronormative behind board games, and here we are, our our little communities were small but mighty, you know, to come and start like hammering down that wall. And you were mentioning, Matthew, this is 2023, but there have been people in our spaces for decades beyond that in the gaming sphere. Like you know, there are several people that come to my mind right now that have been speaking out to bring more queer people to gaming, to bring more women, to bring more people of color into gaming. And they're just continuing just to hand you know, pass the baton to us, you know. Um, but there's still a giant wall. There's still a giant wall. But we're trying, you know, we're trying. And I think it just has to do a lot with our personal experiences and being able to be comfortable sharing those experiences. Because, like I said, once someone starts speaking it, then others will kind of come alongside. Um, Hopefully in the way that is supportive and things too, not to be afraid, because I know some conversations and some personal experiences are very tragic and are very emotionally damaging. And so some of those people don't like to share that right away. But I would hope that with the community that we're building, that they can feel comfortable enough to know that they will be supported no matter how much or how little they want to share, you know.
I love that,
So
Jess. You have a way of really bringing like uh things down to like a really deep emotional level, which is fantastic. Which is why I love having you on my channel and everything, and working with you. But yeah, I I don't know if you were getting emotional, but I was feeling kind of emotional as you were speaking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
We were just letting it go because it was great.
I was just like,
Yeah.
just take over the whole freaking thing. Like,
yeah. Just got this. We're just here, just soaking all this up. It's fantastic.
this is amazing. No, I love this, and actually, I think it's gonna lend itself to the next and final, probably final question of the panel, and it's gonna be very pertinent to what's going on today. Again, this is June 8th, 2023. That's when we're recording this. Uh, in terms of what's going on in the political sphere within the U.S. Not gonna get too much into it, but I might actually. But we'll see. Uh, what do we notice about the issues of allyship within the LGBTQ plus community itself, as it relates to gaming, or maybe not?
I mean, I think there needs to be more. It's kind of disheartening to see people that you thought were safe places, that you were safe people, making comments or doing things that you're like, that's not, you weren't supposed to do that. Finding a safe person is so hard. Like, if you find a person and you're like, okay, you're actually a good one, and then they make comments and you're like, dang it, okay. And it needs to be more. It's hard. It's really hard at times, and I get really frustrated, and poor Joe just has to listen to me whine and complain all the time. Because I know that if I go to a convention and I sit down at a table with a whole bunch of strangers, there's a good chance that there's going to be a comment made that would be derogatory towards me in some way, shape, or form. I have faced ableism at gaming tables. I've faced fat phobia at tables as someone who is still trying to figure out their gender because it just nothing feels right. I've heard so many comments, and it's like, I don't want to sit down at a table with brandos. It's almost terrifying at times because it's like, I can't play this game if I have to keep my guard up and keep my focus up. And so being an ally, there just needs to be so much more, because there's always going to be people like me who are sitting at tables now terrified and won't open their mouth or say anything because it's like, oh my God, what if I say something and this person unleashes a rant of homophobic, transphobic things towards me and hits me with every single one, and I leave the games place crying. Nobody wants that. And I think as allies, making sure that you do step up and say something for every single comment that is going to hurt someone at the table, whether it be homophobic or transphobic or ableist or anything, because so many of those things are intertwined. Most of the queer people I know also fall on the neurodivergent spectrum, and most of them are disabled in some way, shape, or form. And so there's so many intersectionalities that knowing that if I have a safe person, like I know that if I'm with Jess and I look at her with tears in my eyes, like she's going to say something and she will walk away with me and she'll be there when I'm crying. And I might cry now because it's so hard and it's terrifying to know that if I just put myself out there, like I could walk away devastated and genuinely hurt by what is said about me. Not even intentionally, just because that's what boys do, or that's just how they talk, because it's not. And everyone needs to speak up against those things, because you can only handle so much before you just want to give up. You want to get out because it's not worth it to feel unsafe every single time you go to an event or do something or anything. And I mean, if you were to just learn everything on the BGG forums, oh my, just no, you would be terrible. And actually, that's how I got my start. And I looked at him, I'm like, why would I want to get into this? And he's like, here's good resources that don't make you want to cry. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I was convinced that everybody was actually just a terrible human being at one point.
Yeah, no, that I as a matter of fact, I remember that conversation vividly. I'm like, What is wrong with you?
Why would you join this? Like, these people are out here saying really terrible things, and he's like,
and I was like, no, you're right. These people do say terrible things, which is why you should be looking this way.
yeah. And so I have now curated a very lovely group of people that I see their stuff because I know that they're safe places for me. So I get to play, dumb and be like, but it's still there. And every time I go in public, like, I'm just like, oh my God, I got my little she, they pin and I got my little flags. And I'm like, is someone going to stop me? Is someone going to harass me about this? Like, it's terrifying sometimes. And I think finding people that are genuinely good allies that I know would stand up and be like, hey, that's not okay. Those are the people I want to be around.
Yeah, I totally relate to you, Abby. In terms of being somebody who's trans, non-binary. Um, I with things that are going on right now in terms of just like things in the US regressing, and it's not just in the US, I know it's happening in other places as well. Uh, Particularly against trans folks. I know that I'm going to Dice Tower East in July, which is taking place in Florida. And I'm honestly terrified to go there. And I I mean, I am usually like nervous to, be around a whole bunch of people, or people in general. I you know, I deal with anxiety and all that stuff. So and social anxiety. And you will never see me alone at a convention because of that. I will latch on to either it might be my wife or my, siblings, whatever, because I'm just like, everybody, shield, protect me. But yeah, I'll be going with my wife and I'm just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like uh I know we're gonna be in an enclosed space, but like it's still Florida. I don't know
Yeah.
what is gonna happen. And honestly, it has happened to me in the past where, somebody, I was playing a game, that this guy had lended, which is cool. So we were playing, the guy was not playing. He was just kind of like watching, whatever. Um, and he saw my ribbon, that said, I think at the time, I might have just put, I think I put he, him, and she, her. Although now I go by he, they. But anyway, um, so he asked about it. I was like, yeah, I'm non-binary, whatever. And then he's like, okay, like, and he was being cool about it. And then he says, I just really hope you're not on any of those hormones. Um, because and he had some sort of reason for it, like it was like medically harmful, whatever. And I was just like, I mean, I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth shut. Because number one, I am on hormones. I'm like, how do you just say that to somebody?
Hmm.
But also I was like, you do not know what you're talking about. Like scientifically do not know what you were talking about. And honestly, I don't know much of the science either, so I don't even feel like I could defend myself right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, um, but I think in terms of also just like the allyship within the LGBTQ plus community, we're even noticing like we have like sectors of like people who are like, yeah, you know what? Let's just do LGB, and like cut out the rest of the letters. I'm like, all of them? Like, so like you're not cool with trans people, ace, arrow, like what? Like, intersex people, like I don't know. They're so are uh that to me is unbelievable. I guess what really grinds my gears is like, but you know what it's like to be the target of oppression. Um and for people to not understand that this is who you are, this is not a choice, and so on and so forth. Um and you're still acting this way. And really I think it all goes to getting the upper hand, feeling like, you're above somebody at least, and I think that's the bigger thing, right? Where we're all sort of like pitted against each other. When really, it's the larger system at hand. I kind of think of like a semi-cooperative game where, you know,
Mm.
uh, the game itself, you have to beat the game itself, but then you're also like fighting with each other. Um, Funnily enough, I hate semi-co-op games. Uh, yeah, that's sort of my spiel, I guess, my thoughts as of now.
And I also will add to that too, Matthew. It's like, what are people benefiting from when they say those types of comments, right? Like, asking you like, oh, I hope you're not on those hormones. Like, what if you would have said something back to that person and been like, oh, no, I'm not. Like, how would that have made them feel? Would that have changed what they would do at the rest of this gaming table? Who knows? Like, what are the benefits of actually saying something like that? Like, I just picture, someone in the store pointing at a woman that might look like she has a pregnant belly and say, oh, when are you due? You,
Yeah.
who
The
are
burrito.
you gonna raise this kid? Like, why are you asking this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's some of those questions is like, really, people, like, why do you care? Like, why do you have to have an answer to this? Um,
It's invasive.
Yeah,
right.
honestly, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of being a decent human being. Like if you think it's remotely personal, just don't ask the damn question. Just be
Yeah.
be a good human being, be a good neighbor, interact with people the way they expect to be treated and the way you want to be treated in return, and just leave all the personal crap out of it. Like if you have a belief, great. Maybe it's not somebody else's belief. Just be a decent human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird because it almost felt like he was trying to come from a place of care. So it was sort of like masked in that way. And you know what? I think that he honestly believed he was coming from a place of care. Um, but that's not what it was. And everybody wants to feel like they're a good person. And I don't think that many people are intentionally trying to be malicious.
Yeah.
They just don't understand. And
Or they think too quickly, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like, or they speak too quickly, not think too quickly. They speak too quickly and don't think fast enough. So they they spit out something and you're just like, do you want to like rewind the last like 20 seconds and then try that again? Yeah, sorry, Matthew, I didn't mean to cut you off there,
Nope.
but that's just totally what I would think about. It's like, really, yeah, it baffles me. It really baffles me too, just the way of like people's having conversations. And it's like, conversations don't have to be battles that are won,
Yes. Yeah.
like this is so dumb. This is so dumb. But I used to be, back in the day, I used to be one of those people that have to send the last text to somebody. So if it's like, have a good day, like you too. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Emoji, and it's like, just let it go, end the conversation. The phone is already put down. Like, but it just has to take those moments of like stopping and thinking, like, okay, they said, okay, bye. Like, are they really expecting me? Like, if I put my phone down, are they going to be like, oh my gosh, are they mad at me or whatever? It's like, no, like most of the time people are not. And if they are, then that's a different conversation. But like, it's so, I don't know. And there's so many things of like, if I have a table of my friends sitting down to the table and there's a cis person, there's a trans person, there's a queer person, and me, and then is it going to matter who picks whatever player color they want to pick. Like, if everybody has the player color to play this game, like, does it really matter who is identifying as who? Like, are you actually having a conversation based upon their identity at the gaming table? Are you actually playing this game and not, and like feeling that welcomeness of their community coming together? Like, it's, and I don't mean it to be like it shouldn't care, because I don't want it to be like the all lives matter kind of thing, because that's not the direction I'm going in. What I'm saying is, I feel like these conversations sometimes get into those weeds areas where it's just like everybody's trying to have their voice and everybody is important to have their platform and to have this conversation, but then it gets so blown out of proportion sometimes that it just gets into those like grayer areas, and they're just like, well, it's fine, everybody can just be whoever they want, and just we're just going to have it come, and then we're basically back to square one, right? So there has to be some conversation where a push and pull happens so that people understand that this is not okay to say things. There needs to be a change, and that because of that change, things are going to improve for the better. And we won't get into these weeds and these filters where people just turn a blind eye to things. Because I think also some of those conversations get into that space. Like, well, I had a conversation with a person who was gay, and I didn't think it had anything to do with what we were doing right here. And it's like, actually, it has everything to do with this conversation right now. And so I don't want us to think in those kinds of terms, right? I want us to feel like, as allies, we can open those doors, we can invite our friends in the LGBTQ plus communities to walk alongside us. And when they feel comfortable to sit next to us at a gaming table, they're not going to get daggers shot at them. And it has to make a difference so that people can sense a change, because if people aren't sensing a change, then there's not enough work that's being done. Like, I think what you were saying, Matthew, is just like, yeah, it's great that we have the flags. It's great that they have these things, but there needs to be more. And I feel that's true. But it's going to take time. There's going to be time and spaces. And it's so unfortunate that our political sphere in America is still cycling through the same crap that they have been for, hundreds of years. There is still racism, bigotry, and homophobia to this day in our country, where there have been people that have died and fought for these rights and fought for these beliefs. And change has been made. And yet there are still people that are turning a blind eye and saying, I don't see any difference. What is color? And that just frustrates me to no end. So I don't know what I was going with this. That was probably also my ADD woo! I'm just like, just released a balloon of just, flying wherever.
No, like it felt like you needed to release it, and that's really cool that you did. So thank you.
Yeah.
For doing that.
I think also with that is some people feel entitled to your story. And so like they could be like, oh, are you on those hormones? Like, if you don't pay my bills, you don't get to know. I think it was like RuPaul that said something along those lines, like, if they don't pay your bills, pay them no mind. Because like no one is entitled to anything of you. I mean, don't get me wrong, I need to know everything about Joe because I'm nosy and I live with him.
I still don't tell you everything.
He doesn't tell me everything, but I will bother the daylight out of him about it.
No, I do tell you everything.
But it's like, if I sit there at a table and someone's like, because I've spoken out and I'm like, hey, I am a queer non-binary person. If someone's like, well, how do you feel about what about this? And what about then? Are you doing this? It's like, do you pay my bills? You're not this dude. So no, you don't pay my bills. I am not interested in sharing that part of my life with you. And knowing like there's just some people that have that audacity. Like you're just like, that's a choice. That's a choice. And it drives me nuts because it's like, you don't get to know everyone's story. You get to know
Mhm.
what they choose to share with you. And
Mhm.
if you're not a safe person, I ain't gonna tell you anything.
Right.
I'll be real nice. That's how you probably should, like, if I'm being real nice.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're from Michigan, but you have a little bit of that Southern charm. Like,
Yeah, I'll charm the pants off of you, and then I'll walk away and go, I hate that person. And Joe's like, really? And I'm like, no, for real, I hate them.
oh, so yes, especially when you throw like a bless their heart at me, I'm like, oh,
Sweet.
they done messed up.
He's like, she hates them. And I'm like,
I'm like,
"Yep."
yep, this is not good.
But I think, I mean, because sometimes we do ask questions without thinking about it, but knowing you're not entitled to anybody's story.
Mm-hmm.
You get what they want you to know and what
Mhm.
they think that you should know and what you are a safe person to know.
Mm-hmm.
I won't tell everybody everything. I mean, I've shared a whole bunch today because I like y'all. And I guess internet, well, now y'all know me too.
Oh, no one's gonna see this.
No.
Nobody, yeah.
Internet or anything. But it's like you don't get to come up to the table and be like, so how'd you find out you were queer? And I'd be like, I don't actually know. I just decided one day. I woke up and was like, oh, you know what sounds like fun? Gay. That sounds like fun. And you know, I will say dumb things like that just because I'm irritated at you. So if you get a dumb story about anything about me, just know I probably lied.
Yeah, I think sometimes you're like the epitome of play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yes, because it's like, you know what? No, you asked stupid. Now, you know what? We're gonna have fun with this.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
That's amazing. Thank you
Well,
all. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry. I was gonna cut somebody off, I think.
Yeah, Matthew, it's fine.
Oh, it was just Jess, so
It's fine.
It's just that other person.
It's just
no, I was gonna say thank you for sharing that story about that person, asking you about that, because sometimes it might not be significant to you or might not have been significant for you at that time, but I'm sure somebody watching this might have a similar story that could relate to that. So thank you for sharing that, and for Abby just being the lovely potato that she is.
potato.
In all seriousness though, it's like, it takes the personal experiences, it takes the conversations for others to actually be able to hear and listen to their own voices inside, and to know what's okay. Yeah, and be supported in that. So
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully people who are, watching this video are at Origins right now, possibly who might be watching or listening to the panel are people who are maybe outside of the LGBTQ plus community, but are walking away with something, to like maybe you were the person who asked or said to people like, oh, I hope you're not on hormones or whatever, and it's like, oh, actually, okay, that's not the right thing to do. And it's like, I'm going to change that. That would be really awesome. That is allyship, growth is allyship, I think. And uh, and again, even those within the community itself, like, we need to do better in terms of educating ourselves and keeping up with the words. I think Abby was mentioning that, and all that. I mean, terms are changing all the time, so you know, and it's a lot. And I know it's a lot. I think a lot of us know it's a lot. So uh, I personally don't expect people to know everything. Because
Get your chart, Matthew. Get your chart.
Okay, all right, I got it. So thank you all really so much for joining me today. Y'all have been amazing and lovely, sharing your stories, sharing your thoughts. And even though I went on rampages, burned down building, but I'm just really glad that we got to have this conversation. And just more, if people could just know, like, where can people find you?
Joe?
I was about to say, Jess, I'll let you go first since you were,
No.
rudely went last.
Rudely?
Oh, no. Oh, okay. You know what? All right, you know what?
Here.
I try to be. You know,
I'm
Abby, you go
okay,
first.
because I have the least. I'm everywhere on the internet as the Baker Meeple. You can find me harassing Joe on Twitch. Sometimes I harass Jess as well. Really, I'm just like the resident potato, and you might just like see me pop up out of nowhere. But that's really that's it. You can just find me on the internet. I like to bake and play games, and that's it.
Cool.
Well, there you go. That works.
I can't wait to have the honor of being harassed by Abby as well.
I think you're in the club, Matthew. You're in the club.
Yeah, okay. The chitty chat. Here we are.
Yes, with the chitty chat. As for me, I am Joe. You can find me everywhere on the internet at Phantom Meeple, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my main platform is streaming board games on Twitch.
And for me, you can find me all over the internet at Jess_CCG. I stream board gaming content on Twitch 3 times a week, and the occasional guest stream on Matthew's channel, Room 51 Live, when he wants me to show up. But no, I also
Never. Wow.
oh, is that how it is?
Sorry. I love you.
And she's gone again.
Dang, it just keeps leaving.
It's something with my connection. I don't know what's happening. Yes, so you can find me all over the spaces, and most likely at Gen Con will be the next convention that you will see my face in person. So if you do see me, please come up and say hello. I am an approachable person, I hope, and I would love to say hi to you.
Yeah, cool. What conventions will people find you, Phantom Meeple, Baker Meeple?
We will also both be at Gen Con, probably with Jess in tow, because we decided to go habitate. So if she can't get rid of us, we can't get rid of her. So if you see the 3 of us, come up, say hello.
Yeah.
Probably give me a pat.
We'll be linking arms. We'll be like the 3 musketeers walking down the hallway.
Yeah. No, but joking aside, yeah, we'll all be at Gen Con. So if you see us, say hello. We'd love to say hi to you.
And it's just my face. I'm not unapproachable. It's just my face, okay? Like, I'm really a tolerable potato most of the time.
You're an adorable potato.
Oh my gosh, a tolerable potato. I love that.
Yeah.
That needs to be a hashtag.
You need to make stickers.
Oh, you should. Yes.
I was about to say, do you have stickers for that? Because that has to be a thing.
No, but it needs to be now.
That's what I'm gonna actually go do after this. I'm gonna be like,
go make a tolerable potato sticker. Yes.
That is awesome. Thank you all so much. I hope you're all enjoying Origins if you're there, or this pre-Origins panel of whatnot. My name again is Matthew Makak. And yeah, you can find me on Room 51 right here where you are right now. It's awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.